This is a day for breaking news. You're looking at file video of President-elect Donald Trump outside a courtroom, and here is your headline right now. Manhattan prosecutors telling New York Judge Alvin Bragg how they feel about any discussion or any push to get away with, or to do away with any of the hush money trial prosecution efforts. So listen, Alvin Bragg had a lot to consider today. Listen, Donald Trump facing all of those accusations and convictions in the hush money case. Sentencing was set to come in November. And then, of course, as we know, Donald Trump became President-elect Trump. So that put Alvin Bragg literally in his own hot seat, trying to figure out what to do with the case. Well, today in a hearing, prosecutors said, look, we oppose any efforts to dismiss this case. They want their case to go forward. And so very much on the mind of Alvin Bragg is this moment, the last time Donald Trump, who was then candidate Trump, left his courtroom. Now he's thinking back on what was said in prior arguments, what is happening now in the case, and what should happen going forward, knowing that come January, President-elect Trump will be the president of the United States. Much more to follow on this, but we wanted to get that on the record. Those prosecutors arguing they oppose any efforts to dismiss the case, whether Donald Trump is the president of the United States or not. Well, the president-elect is also facing fallout from his choice to tap Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. CBS News Major Gaetz sat down with Joel Leppard, who represents at least two of the four women who testified before the House Ethics Committee about former Congressman Gaetz' alleged conduct. Leppard says his clients told the committee that they were paid to have sex with Matt Gaetz and others. According to Leppard, one woman testified she witnessed Gaetz having sex with a minor. Take a listen to some of those allegations in that interview.
She arrived at the party. She had sex with Representative Gaetz within minutes of her arrival. Later on, when she was walking out to the pool area, she observed to her right Representative Gaetz having sex with her friend, who was 17 at the time.
And on this question, she's absolutely sure.
She's absolutely certain that she observed, seeing her friend and Representative Gaetz having sex against what she described as a game table of some sort.
If the House Ethics Committee report were to be made public, what do you think it would reveal?
My clients want to know that this happened and it's real. They didn't vote in the last two elections. They don't care one way or another. But they do want the public to know that they are not lying. They did not come forward willingly. They've never spoken to anyone without the force of a legal subpoena. The testimonies of her and the other 11 individuals that testified would show that this actually did happen, and the American people would know, and they could decide if that's the person they want to be the next Attorney General of the United States.
Matt Gaetz has denied all wrongdoing and called the committee's investigation a smear. The Trump team responded after that interview aired on CBS Evening News last night. Trump transition spokesperson Alex Pfeiffer said in part, Matt Gaetz will be the next Attorney General. He's the right man for the job and will end the weaponization of our justice system. These are baseless allegations intended to derail the second Trump administration. So let's bring in CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane. Scott, an unknown and unauthorized third party has gained access to 24 depositions of witnesses in the Gaetz investigation. What more do we know about those?
There's this growing consensus here at the Capitol, Reed, that somehow this report's going to get out in the open. Whether the Ethics Committee publicly releases it or whether there is some type of leak, either through the way you just described or through either a member or one of the staffers here on Capitol Hill. There seems to be an acceptance to the fact this is going to get out into the open, whether the Ethics Committee recommends it formally tomorrow or not. And the House Ethics Committee is meeting tomorrow. This 12-person panel, 6 Republicans, 6 Democrats, is expected to meet and potentially vote on whether to publicly release what it found about Matt Gaetz through a 3-year investigation. But here's the twist. For the House Ethics Committee, which is evenly divided by both parties, a majority vote is needed to do this, which means somebody's got to go to the other side. And in this politically charged moment, it's unclear that's going to happen. We do know from our interviews today with senators, we've been talking to a whole lot of them, that both parties have senators that would like to see this thing before a confirmation hearing, before they decide whether or not to confirm Matt Gaetz. There's clearly some concern here.
CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane on all of the breaking developments. Thank you so much, Scott. All right, so CBS News investigative journalism always working here. We are watching right now who we are about to talk to. Let's go ahead and talk to our next guest. Let's go ahead and advance things a little bit. Investigative reporter Graham Gaetz joins us now. Graham, what options does the judge have here?
Well, prosecutors officially today asked the judge to consider delaying the case, at least in the short term, so that delaying sentencing of Trump, I apologize, at least in the short term, so that they can hear the defense attorney's argument for dismissing the case altogether because Trump was elected president. But they mentioned in this very brief filing to the judge in the case, his name is Juan Merchan, that he might want to consider adjourning the case, delaying it all the way until after Trump's presidency, so that there's no conflict of interest, no issue with the president of the United States or president-elect of the United States having to show up in court for his criminal case. But that way they could balance, the jury's finding with the kind of constitutional interests of the presidency. And this was expected, but it's the first time the DA's office confirmed in writing officially that that's something that they think might be a good option, putting off, after he was convicted in May, putting off sentencing until 2029.
Wow, 2029. So as to this most recent conversation, what is the next moment that we need to put on our calendars to find any more breaking details in this from your perspective?
Wipe your calendars clear. The sentencing is still technically on the books for a week from today, November 26th,
okay.
But don't count on that happening if the DA is saying maybe push this thing back 4 years. The Trump's team has to respond to these suggestions from the prosecutors, and then finally the judge will get to make a decision. And there's several things now that are kind of outstanding. This long-awaited decision from the judge on whether presidential immunity should have kept some of the evidence shown at trial. That was supposed to be released a week ago, but we may have to wait a long time for that, although the judge hasn't said when he'll release that. And then we have to wait for, after the prosecutor's response to this, their actual motion to dismiss based on Trump being elected president. And then, of course, the judge's rulings on all of these matters.
All right, Graham, thank you so much for that perspective. Much more on this with CBS News legal analyst Jessica Levinson when we come back. Getting back to that breaking news regarding President-elect Donald Trump's hush money case out of New York and the moves of Judge Alvin Bragg. Let's bring in CBS News legal analyst Jessica Levinson. Jessica, what is happening here?
So what's happening here is we're trying to find out what is going to happen to this hush money case. We know that this is the only one of the criminal cases that were pending against President Trump that went to trial, and in fact, where there was a jury verdict that was reached, and that jury verdict was guilty on 34 felony counts. But we have never been here before. So what's happening is trying to sort out what happens next when the person convicted is the president-elect of the United States.
And sentencing still on the books, according to the person we just talked to on the other side of the break. What happens to that sentencing now?
What happens is we don't know. Really good question. So we have a couple of different questions with respect to this hush money payment trial and the jury verdict. And number one is, does the Supreme Court's decision regarding presidential immunity have any bearing on this case? That was actually something that was supposed to be decided last week. That's on hold. Now, assuming the judge says, you know what, that immunity decision, it doesn't actually affect this case because there were not official acts at play here, then we move to what do we do about sentencing? And very briefly, there are a couple of different routes here. One is to delay sentencing until after the next administration. Another is to say, we will sentence now, but I think more likely than not, there would not be any prison time, any jail time, because we're talking about the president-elect. He is transitioning into the Oval Office, and it's hard to imagine a situation where we would have a judge say, but you will be incarcerated during that transition. I just want to emphasize there are legal questions here, but these are largely matters of first impression. We have never had a former president who's a convicted felon, who's reelected, who's awaiting sentencing. Judge Merchan is in the unenviable position of being the first judge in the country to confront these questions.
Jessica Levinson, thank you so much for explaining that to us. Of course, all cameras, all eyes, and all ears on this one for sure in the days to come. So we want to bring you an update on the Trump cabinet choices. Sources tell CBS News that the president-elect intends to nominate billionaire Howard Lutnick to serve as the Commerce Secretary. So this pick comes after days of speculation among Trump allies. So let's go deeper on this one. CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns near the Trump camp in West Palm Beach. So what more do we know about Mr. Lutnick?
Hey, great to see you. Well, Lutnick is the co-chair of the Trump transition team. So he, along with Linda McMahon, has been in charge of vetting all of these cabinet picks, potentially administration positions, putting them in front of the president-elect, and the president-elect decides. Now, Lutnick was in the running for Treasury Secretary. So the idea that now he is picked for Commerce, confirmed by CBS News, that takes him, of course, out of the running for that key position, which is another key position we've been waiting for. Now, Lutnick is the chairman and CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, that financial advisory firm. He also has been by Trump's side a lot. We saw him often on the campaign trail. He's been a frequent cable news guest talking about the president-elect's tariff plan, for example, and really defending his economic policies in the public sense. But behind the scenes, he's also been working on vetting administration picks. So this, again, takes him out of the running for Treasury. That's another position we're keeping an eye on, Treasury and Secretary of Education. Reed, as you know, these picks are coming out at such a rapid pace, and we know that the president-elect wants to have all of these choices made before next week, Thanksgiving.
All right, we also know that happening today, President-elect Donald Trump is scheduled to attend Elon Musk's SpaceX launch in the Lone Star State. What are you watching for there?
That's right. He has just left here in West Palm Beach, heading to Texas with his friend Elon Musk, who has been by his side really since Election Day, has accompanied him to various stops as well. This is significant, Reed, because it's not just two friends going to see a rocket launch. This, of course, is Elon Musk's company, and there are questions about potential conflicts of interest, including, the government regulation of companies like his. And so, yes, this is a significant event because those questions are being raised about their relationship and Musk's influence, given that he has been pretty much inseparable from the president-elect. I mean, Trump even joked about it last weekend, saying that, Musk hasn't really left his side. And so we'll see what comes of this, but it's important to pay attention to that relationship and what it means in terms of government contracts.
Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you so much. We know there is much to watch today, not only in Texas, but also in West Palm Beach. Thank you so much. Straight ahead, a Las Vegas home invasion and a call for help to police. A realtor shot to death as the woman who police say broke into the home tells police, "You were supposed to shoot me and not him." The story making national news from Sin City. We have more when we come back. Let's get back to that breaking news. Manhattan prosecutors say they oppose any efforts to drop the Trump hush money case. However, they say they remain open to delaying that sentencing until after Mr. Trump ends his time in office. So the tentative sentencing date already scheduled for November 26. Will it happen? We have yet to hear the judge's decision. Evan McMorris-Santoro is a reporter for Notice. He joins us now. Okay, so Evan, what are you seeing in that breaking news? What do you think is going to happen with Alvin Bragg? What do you think is going to happen with Judge Merchan?
This is one of the most fascinating parts about the transition to the new presidency, right? We have never seen a president who has been convicted of crimes take the oath of office and become the president of the United States. And you're seeing how this might play out here in New York with Alvin Bragg talking about this sentencing. Alvin Bragg, who is also an elected official himself, right? He doesn't want to drop this case. His prosecutors, they won. They feel good about this. They want to go ahead and take the win and get their sentencing. But they also are trying to thread this needle between, look, the guy is going to become president on January 20th. And so this is a really interesting look at what the future, the future of this presidency might be like, where you have this maybe over the president's head for his entire term of office. Is he going to be sentenced? Is he not going to be sentenced? What's going to happen? this is one of those things that as you see this president take office and you see him deal with states like New York that would like a lot of federal help, needs a lot of federal help, you have to see how these things are going to play out between these elected officials like Alvin Bragg, the governor here, and the president who has been convicted of these crimes. It's a very delicate political balance. And I'm really fascinated to see what the judge will actually do with this and what comes next.
All right, and we also want to ask you about that breaking news out of Mar-a-Lago, the selection of Mr. Lutnick for Commerce Secretary. What do you know about Mr. Lutnick, and how do you feel senators who have that confirmation process ahead of them will feel about him? Already, the senators are dealing with quite a bit of controversy where Matt Gaetz is concerned.
Well, that's right. I will say senators are relieved after hearing about Matt Gaetz and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that this is a more palatable Republican nominee for a cabinet position. But as Caitlin Huey-Burns mentioned in the last segment, this is a nominee who's really focused on the tariff program that Trump has promised, right? This idea of across-the-board tariffs all over the world in an attempt to bring jobs and rebuild American manufacturing. I got a lot of reporting coming out about this tomorrow in the Notice newsletter, actually, about how possible this actually is in this trifecta the Republicans have found themselves in. A lot of Republicans don't want to do tariffs. They think they're a tax. They are in opposition to big business, who doesn't want to do tariffs. They want to have more unfettered global trade. And so this guy taking this position, this Commerce Secretary position, suggests the Trump administration really is going to push hard on this tariff stuff, and it could end up being a real tension point with these Republican senators that he has to deal with. So it may not be that the nomination is as hard to get through the Senate as maybe Matt Gaetz might be, but it does sort of portend a difficult future when it comes to these trade policies.
Evan McMorris-Santoro, thank you so much for being on CBS News 24/7. We hope to have you back. Let's jump the map now to Georgia. Live look inside the courtroom for day 3 in the trial of the man accused of killing 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley. You're seeing him there. Prosecutors intend to rest their case today. The defense will begin calling their witnesses shortly after that. Now, an attorney for the man you see there on your screen, Jose Ibarra, says they will wrap with their testimony from Ibarra's brothers. CBS News correspondent Manuel Bojorquez stepping out of the courtroom to talk to us. Manuel, let's talk about those brothers. Which side could that help, the prosecution or the defense?
Well, the defense is the side that has called the brothers to testify. There are a few theories about why. One is perhaps to humanize the defendant, Jose Ibarra. The other is to try to muddy the waters, to say, look at these brothers, they're relatively the same size, they look alike. There's word that they shared clothing in the past, to try to create some doubt about whether police arrested the right guy.
So what evidence did prosecution, their side, offer today?
Yeah, it started as a really emotional day, yet another emotional day in court. They read aloud the last text message that Laken Riley sent, and it was one to her mother. She said, "Good morning, about to go for a run, if you're free to talk." And then they showed the text messages from her mother after that, trying to get a hold of her, saying, "I'm worried, what's going on?" They played video of her jogging the morning of February 22nd, as well as surveillance video of a man seen in that area earlier wearing all dark clothing and a hoodie.
Manuel, any sense of timing here? Prosecution, defense about to wrap. The judge expected after that to make some pretty important decisions. Do you see an end to this by the end of this week?
There definitely could be an end to this by the end of the week. The reason we say that is the defense has signaled that once they present their case, they may just need about half a day. And remember, this isn't a jury trial. The defense decided to forego a jury trial, so the judge will be making the decision. No need to give any jury instructions or anything like that. So the judge could get the case perhaps at the end of the day, if not tomorrow, and then we'll have to do a verdict watch to see what he says.
Verdict watch. Manuel Bojorquez, thank you so much once again. We appreciate you stepping out of the courtroom and talking to us. When we come back, we'll be talking more about the fallout regarding the Donald Trump hush money case. We are in uncharted territory here. The president-elect facing sentencing for crimes he's been convicted of, and what to do relative to timing and timelines. We're going to hear what the prosecution argued before a judge today when we come back. Turning back to New York now, where prosecutors in the Trump hush money case say they oppose any effort to stop the president-elect's sentencing. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg does remain open, though, to delaying the case until Donald Trump ends his time in office. The judge has not yet ruled on this case or how to proceed. But I want to get to something that we just got, a statement from President-elect Trump's communications director. Here is what they said. And by the way, they called the trial a witch hunt trial. They say this is a total and definitive victory for President Trump and the American people who elected him in a landslide. They went on to say the Manhattan DA has conceded that this witch hunt cannot continue. The lawless case is now stayed, and President Trump's legal team is moving to get it dismissed once and for all, close quote, Mr. Chung, Trump communications director. Okay, so let's bring in CBS News investigative reporter Graham Gaetz now. What options does the judge have here, and is it really as easy as that? They say the case is now stayed.
Yeah, so that's not exactly right, unless they're revealing information that hasn't been made public yet. The judge has to decide that the case can be stayed or delayed until a further date. Now, what the prosecutors said in their letter to the judge this morning was that they support pushing things back. Now, there's a couple different ways they could push it back. The first is Trump's defense has said that they're going to file a motion to dismiss, basically saying that it's unconstitutional for him as president-elect and later as president to have this criminal case hanging over his head. The prosecutor said they want to oppose that motion if it's filed, but that at the very least, the sentencing, which had been scheduled for November 26th, should be pushed back so the two sides can hash that out. So the motion can be filed and the prosecutors can respond to it and the judge can rule. But they said there's another option here, which is pushing the case back, all matters in the case, all the way until after Trump's presidency in 2029. That way, there won't be any sticky issues of a president having to worry about his criminal case, having to meet filing deadlines or show up in court while performing his constitutional duties as commander-in-chief. And when you put that in context, this case began during his first presidency. In 2018, the Manhattan District Attorney began investigating Trump and the hush money payment to the adult film star that's at the core of this case. And now we're talking about maybe not seeing a conclusion to this whole matter until 2029.
And I just really want to go back to that statement by Stephen Chung. So are you saying that unless Team Trump knows something that the general public does not know, are you saying that their language, this lawless case is now stayed, is at the worst a lie and at a minimum a mischaracterization? No. Is that a mischaracterization?
No, look, last week the judge adjourned proceedings while waiting for today's filing so that he could decide how to proceed. There has been no decision by the judge that there won't be a sentencing, definitively that there won't be a sentencing, that this matter will be pushed back for years and years. All that we got today and what they're responding to today was the prosecutors agreeing with them that the sentencing next week shouldn't happen. The judge has not said, no, for sure, definitively it won't happen. The judge has said he wanted to hear from prosecutors first.
And then they point the way forward. They say this legal team is now moving to get it dismissed once and for all. What would the process be trying to get it dismissed once and for all, as they just said to this statement to the American people?
Yeah, so they said in a letter last week that they intended to make this filing. Their argument is that it would be an unconstitutional burden on the president-elect or the president, depending on when things happen. And for that reason, the case should be dismissed. And they've said all along they wanted his conviction set aside, and they want him to be able to move forward with a clean slate. But prosecutors said today that if that motion is filed, if they seek to have the case dismissed because he was elected president, that they're going to oppose it. They said, when the conviction happened, he had no extra constitutional rights. He wasn't yet a president. He was a civilian. And there's no precedent for outright dismissing a conviction just because someone was elected to office.
The Supreme Court ruling relative to presidential immunity, does it give any protection to the president-elect where this case is concerned?
As far as the prosecutors say, right? And
Yeah.
the defense team is going to say that that this would be an unconstitutional burden on him, and then they're going to have to hash that out.
Fascinating. We will be watching it for sure. It's great to talk to you once again here on CBS News 24/7. Who knows? In 5 more minutes, more news may break. Keep your suit coat on. We may call you right back. Thank you very, very much. We also have an idea of where the president-elect is going to be. You're looking at the waters in Texas right now. This is a live look at Brownsville, Texas, where the president-elect Donald Trump is not only getting this news relative to Judge Marchand and what he is going to face, but he's also traveling there to watch the launch of SpaceX rockets. So this is about a 4-hour drive south of San Antonio, and looks like somebody's upstaging what was the picture that we wanted to show you. There we go. Go ahead, tugboat or whatever boat you are. That tower right there is what we want to watch. Today's launch marks the 6th mission for the Starship rocket. So SpaceX says the Starship might one day travel to the moon and Mars. CBS News correspondent Jason Allen joins us live. He's got a little bit of a different vantage point. No, you've still got that boat there in the background. Man, talk about upstaging us right now. Just tell it to move along so we can see the action, right? You're right across the water from that launch site. Jason, liftoff just a few hours away. What are you seeing right now?
Reed, we have been battling this, what we think is a dredge for most of the morning, going back and forth, and we just hit it at the wrong time to give you a shot of the Super Heavy just across the water. But the good thing is, despite the boat being out there, that everything is on track right now. It's breezy out here, but the sun's out. SpaceX has said that the weather conditions are great, and this park that we're in, which is, as you said, directly across the water, is filling up fast. There are a lot of people here in line to get into this park at 5 o'clock this morning. We talked to people who've been out here for other launches, and they said the first a few people, but especially after what we saw last month with that booster being caught again by the chopsticks, that has really ramped up interest, and the park is full for this 6th launch this afternoon.
Well, we also understand the president-elect plans to attend that launch today with the CEO of SpaceX, Elon Musk. What does Trump's support mean for SpaceX? We know there's a lot in it for Elon Musk.
There absolutely is, and it's notable to have the incoming president here in attendance. Of course, you know, he has been working on government efficiency, and there are a lot of questions about exactly what he may prioritize with the space program going forward the next few months. But you can look back to his first term and see that it was the Artemis program that the Trump administration really challenged, and that was something that the Biden administration continued. So to have him here in attendance at least shows some support for continuing that. And he has vocally talked about his desire to continue to go not just to the moon, but to Mars. He's talked about that during the campaign, and as he and Elon have been developing this close relationship over the last few months.
Right. Well, we will be watching for sure, because that is one heck of a show when it happens down there in Texas. That old phrase, they do things bigger in Texas. They are going to definitely be doing it big today. Jason Allen, so nice to talk to you. Have a great day. We've got some developing news out of Russia. 6 American-made missiles launched by Ukrainian forces into Russia overnight. And that follows President Biden's green light to Ukraine to fire those longer-range U.S.-supplied missiles deeper into Russia. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams reports on the response out of Moscow.
Russia says that Ukraine fired 6 American-made ATACMS into the Bryansk region in southern Russia today, apparently targeting a military facility. Now, we are still working to confirm those details, but a U.S. official has confirmed to CBS News that the ATACMS, missiles with a maximum range of close to 200 miles, have now been used on Russian territory. This comes just days after the U.S. gave permission for the ATACMS to be used against targets deep inside Russia. Russia says the U.S. is adding fuel to the fire with the move. And in September, Vladimir Putin warned that if the U.S. allowed Ukraine to use ATACMS inside his country, it would mean that America and Russia were at war. Today, Putin approved a change in Russia's nuclear doctrine, lowering the threshold for a Russian nuclear strike. A U.S. official called that, quote, irresponsible rhetoric. The U.S. decision to allow Ukraine a broader use of the ATACMS came after more than 10,000 North Korean troops were deployed to Russia, bolstering Moscow's forces. Today, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that number could grow to 100,000 North Korean soldiers. Today also marks 1,000 days of war here in Ukraine, 1,000 days since Vladimir Putin sent his tanks, troops and warplanes across the border. The military death toll alone in this country is thought to be around 70,000. Back to you.
Kelly, thank you so much. We're going to be talking when we come back regarding a proposed breakup within the Google family. Kelly O'Grady will have that story straight ahead. A Walmart earnings report signaling the season of Santa is off like a shot. Sales rose during the most recent quarter as shoppers bought more groceries, more home goods, and more toys. Walmart also saying they've raised their sales and profit estimates for the year. Let's head down the aisle, so to speak, with CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, the Walmart numbers say a lot about the people filling the carts. What do they say?
So good to be with you, Reed. Yeah, look, Walmart's numbers say that Americans are spending. The really interesting thing, though, when a company gives you their earnings is that's sort of the backward-looking picture. So, you know, the numbers that came through today, people are still spending. What I always like to look at, though, is the guidance. So what are they expecting for the quarter that we're currently in that, of course, includes all of this holiday spending? And the messaging from Walmart was really about a cautious consumer, someone that is looking for the discounts, that's not just going to be throwing everything in the cart. They're really going to be making trade-offs and focusing on how to make, you know, that one or two big purchases count. The other thing, Reed, that I thought was really interesting is Walmart mentioned that they're getting traction with all of the different income groups. This is not just that lower income, you know, folks that have traditionally been very loyal Walmart customers. This is also the middle and higher income groups that are flocking to Walmart for those deals. So I always like to say, you know, Walmart is a bellwether for the American consumer. I think what we can get today is, yes, people are spending, but we're looking at a more cautious consumer going forward, Reed.
All right. So another question. We also saw kind of the same dynamic with home improvement store Lowe's. They topped their third quarter earnings and revenue estimates, but at the same time, they say they expect sales to fall. I feel like you said that about Home Depot, one of their competitors, a few days ago. Why is that?
Great memory, Reed. I did. And that's, again, because of that consumer that's sort of looking at these big purchases, these big home renovation projects, which you tend to go to a Home Depot or a Lowe's for. And they're saying, hey, you know what? Even though we did get a couple of interest rate cuts, I'm not feeling super confident about that financial future. And so I'm going to pull back. And so from Lowe's, what we heard today is that a lot of their customers are putting off those big projects because they're being more cautious with their money right now, Reed.
All right, so Kelly, I'm going to cash in my one dad joke a day card when I say this. I would Google the answer to my next question, but I know that you would be more sterling in Chrome if I just ask you directly. I've got to ask about Bloomberg's reporting about the Justice Department and Google. What's the headline there?
Yeah, so there was, if you remember, a big antitrust trial, and the DOJ, the Department of Justice, won this. And basically, the reading was that Google has created a monopoly in the online search space. And like you said, right, we just go and Google it. Everyone uses Google. What Bloomberg is reporting is tomorrow the DOJ is going to come with recommendations of what the penalty should be for that ruling. And one of those recommendations we are hearing is that they would actually force Google or Alphabet to sell off Chrome. And the reason is that Chrome, over 54% of us use that as our primary browser. You go into Chrome, Google's right there. It's already loaded. And so the idea would be if they were to force Google to sell Chrome, they would be able to ensure that Google is not fully loaded there, and just kind of make it would be one step more for the consumer. You and I can just go to google.com and put our information in, but it would definitely hurt Google. They wouldn't have as direct access to all that customer data. But we will see. The judge wouldn't necessarily have to accept that recommendation, Reed.
We will watch, and we know you as well will be watching. CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady, thank you so much. From Kelly, we go to a place that is going to get quite a bit of weather. Live now to Portland. It's raining now as that city braces for potential flooding this week. A bomb cyclone and an atmospheric river will combine on the West Coast. So, Jess, you know what a bomb cyclone is as it gets ready to collide. Tell us.
Well, let's talk about bomb cyclones, a term that you may hear a lot during the winter storm season. But what exactly are they? Well, a bomb cyclone is essentially just a rapidly intensifying storm, and here's how it works. When air rises in the atmosphere, it creates a vacuum effect like you see over the Pacific Northwest. It lowers the atmospheric pressure, and then it strengthens the storm. And this process accelerates the air that's rising faster and faster, causing that pressure within the storm to drop significantly. So if the barometric pressure falls by at least 24 millibars in just 24 hours, the storm undergoes what us meteorologists call bombogenesis, becoming a bomb cyclone. So the result, stronger winds, heavier rain and snow, more severe weather impacts, just like what we're beginning to see over the Pacific Northwest this week. Now, this system can bring extreme weather conditions that require extra preparation and awareness. And as always, we're going to keep you updated here on CBS News 24/7 for updates and safety tips when one of these powerful storms are on the horizon. But that's exactly what we're dealing with right now, from the Bay Area all the way up into the Pacific Northwest this week, because it's fueling in an atmospheric river that will bring in rain up to around 10 to 20 inches. The mountains can receive anywhere up to around 2 to 3 feet. And take a look at this. I mean, impressive numbers widespread throughout that coastline, but we're also dealing with strong winds too. Wind speeds are going to strengthen tonight, with a lot of wind advisories issued by the National Weather Service in effect all along that coastline from the Bay Area north into southern Oregon, with wind speeds up to around 60 to 70 miles per hour. I'll keep you updated on that here in the Weather Center.
Thank you. Our Eye on America series takes us to where you live your lives and confront problems like this one. Here's something that is more than a problem, it's a crisis. So far this year, we have seen 109 school shootings in the United States, 44 killed. And you know, among the most contentious ideas for protecting our kids is arming teachers and staff inside schools. CBS News national correspondent Nikki Batiste visited 2 school districts in Ohio to examine both sides of this debate.
It's a moment that still haunts these hallways.
I could smell the burnt gunpowder. Yeah, I knew it was real bad.
The day in 2017 when West Liberty Salem School joined the list of schools that have experienced a shooting.
So these were bullets hit?
The only visible scars left are holes in this bathroom wall from gunshots, but the trauma still lingers.
You had kids jumping out of windows thinking they might die.
Later on, they got the good news that nobody died, but their brain had already experienced that traumatic experience.
When you came, what did you see?
In that bathroom, principals Andy McGill and Greg Johnson rushed to help a student who had been shot twice. Just feet away was the shooter, a student they knew well.
I said his name, and he just said, "I'm sorry, Coach." And I asked him, "I need you to put the gun down," and he did.
Following the shooting, the pair led the drive to implement new security measures, including bulletproofing glass, better window exits, and a school resource officer. But they chose not to arm any staff or teachers.
When you were in that bathroom talking to the shooter, was there any moment you wished you had a gun?
No.
About 50 miles south, just outside Dayton, the Mad River Local School District has given guns to about 20 of its teachers whose identities are kept confidential. We spoke with one of those teachers, keeping her in shadow as part of the district's safety measures.
If there's a school shooter, it could be a student that you know.
Oh, absolutely. At that point in time, that student's not my student. They are now a murderer, and I am stopping a threat. And that's to save other lives.
Across the U.S., 15 states allow school personnel to carry guns on campus. In the last year, the number of school districts in Ohio with armed staff quadrupled, with 14% of the state's districts now participating. Chad Wyan is the superintendent at Mad River and the only armed member of the staff whose identity is public.
So where is your firearm?
So mine's actually housed right here in my cabinet. So I punch in a code.
It was his idea to have guns near teachers in a safe rather than on them, a strategy to prevent unauthorized access.
So typically there's a live round in the chamber. Yeah, we have to be prepared.
He says guns in the classroom serve as a measure of assistance for their single resource officer across 8 schools in the district.
There's no way our police can get there in time to stop it. And that's why we chose to go down that path.
Luckily, he says, they've never had a student bring a gun to their campuses, and most parents here are grateful for this layer of protection.
Some people oppose the idea of armed staff having a gun in a classroom. What would you say to them?
I understand why they have that belief, and I understand their concerns with guns. I had similar concerns before I was comfortable with guns. It's just a tool to protect yourself or to protect other people.
Are you willing to die for your job?
I'm willing to die for a student to protect them.
A test no teacher ever wants to take. For Eye on America, Nikki Batiste, Dayton, Ohio.
Let's go to Las Vegas, where a family demands answers after police killed their father in his own home after he called for help. CBS News correspondent Carter Evans with newly released police body camera video of that incident. And a warning, some of the video is hard to watch.
Red beanie, wearing a black sweatshirt and dark colored pants.
Police arrived at this Las Vegas residence responding to a potential home invasion. The caller, real estate agent Brandon Durham, who told the operator that he and his daughter were going to lock themselves in their rooms.
Hey, they said they made entry. We got to go in there.
The video shows Officer Alexander Bookman entering the house.
Hey, kick it!
Hey, drop the knife!
Then he sees two people struggling with a knife.
Hey, drop the knife!
The officer fires his weapon, striking Durham. We're freezing the video before he goes down. Bookman then fires 5 more rounds at Durham on the ground.
Put your hands up!
He was pronounced dead at the scene.
He was screaming for help in his home with a visible intruder in a red hoodie and a ski mask. And you shoot my brother?
And now his family's pushing for answers.
And he called the police for safety, and instead he was brutally murdered.
Someone needs to explain to me why my son is not here with us today.
The loss of life in any type of incident like this is always tragic, and it's something we take very seriously.
Bookman is now on paid leave while Las Vegas Metro PD investigates whether he acted appropriately or should face criminal charges.
You know, every time a police officer uses force, he has to be able to articulate why he used that force. And even if he did use that one round, how is it that he continued shooting after the person was down in such a rapid succession? It's going to have a lot of explaining.
Carter Evans, CBS News.
Staying in California and the push for releasing brothers convicted of murdering their parents. Governor Gavin Newsom in California says he will delay his decision on clemency for Eric and Lyle Menendez until the newly elected Los Angeles District Attorney completes his review of the evidence. LA's new DA, Nathan Hochman, he says he wants to thoroughly look into that case before backing clemency. Calls to review both Lyle and Eric Menendez's life sentence comes as evidence surfaces that was not allowed in the trial that ended with the brothers sentenced to prison. That evidence seems to corroborate the assertion that the brothers were physically and sexually abused by their parents, who they killed. Look at this video. Knott's Berry Farm, theme park out of Southern California, and riders stuck mid-air for more than 2 hours. So park officials say what you're looking at is the Soul Spin, and it just stopped mid-cycle. That was at 2 p.m. California time. This video, by the way, came to our monitors by helicopter 2 hours after 2 p.m. Some of those riders stuck in sideways position. In all, 22 people had to be plucked off of this ride and rescued. 2 women taken to the hospital. We await word on their conditions. Let's go to North Carolina now. Progress after Hurricane Helene. People in the city of Asheville now do not have to boil their water before drinking it. Sediment deposits tainted their water source, forcing thousands to turn off their taps and to boil their water. Still, Asheville leaders asking people to limit their use of water in that area that not only has a vibrant population, but always this time of year, a huge flux of tourists who come into the Asheville area from all over the United States. 3 people dead in New York City after a man went on a random stabbing spree. The victim's a 36-year-old construction worker, a 67-year-old man fishing at the time, and a 36-year-old woman near the United Nations offices. Police arrested a 51-year-old homeless man known as Ramon Rivera. He will face a judge on murder charges a little later today, and we'll be there. That's it for CBS News 24/7. We continue covering breaking news out of Washington and out of Mar-a-Lago as President-elect Donald Trump continues to form his cabinet. Thanks for watching.